Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, striking up a live stream on a Saturday night, late night to talk college football. We are again the voice of college football. I've got a voice. You've got a voice. We see it all the time on the chats. I, of course, give you guys the opportunity to voice your opinions, your comments, your questions, and your suggestions right here at Mark Rogers TV. And we bring on the voice of some of the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation. And what that meant earlier today was Miami's Alonzo 1219. And also for the first time on Mark Rogers TV, Canes Shades Unk joined us to talk Miami football. You've got a full 90 minutes to take down of Miami football with LSU, of course, front and center. Game one, the quarterback battle between the much maligned Malik Rozier and N'Kosi Perry. Jaron Williams also possibly a factor, the star-studded and very talented freshman on campus. And we talked Miami football with you. We discussed the scheduling as well and the other positions on the field with Alonzo and with Canes Shades. Florida State football talk today with James Coleman from Gridiron Now. James always has a unique perspective, having played for the Noles from 2002 to 2005 under Bobby Bowden. Writes some tremendous work there for Gridiron Now, and you can join him on the Sports Den Live. That's his podcast. So James Coleman and I kicked around some Florida State football. We did talk scheduling, recruiting, the quarterback battle between James Blackman and DeAndre Francois. James told us why Francois was going to win the job if healthy, but Blackman was his choice, and not necessarily the popular choice, considering James Blackman led a 7-6 team last year, and Francois led a team that won the Orange Bowl and finished in the top 10 in the country. But according to James Coleman, James Blackman would be his starting quarterback, and James very excited about what's going on at Florida State, a top 5 recruiting class at this point, at least, headed toward 2019. I will be monitoring the live chat. I don't necessarily have anything specific to talk about, although I will tell you that over the last several hours, I've looked over the Oregon Ducks. They intrigue me as a possible dark horse this season. Consider that Oregon, coming off a 7-6 campaign in which they lost the Las Vegas Bowl in Willie Taggart's lone season in Eugene, have Justin Herbert back, who most likely is the best starting quarterback returning in the Pac-12. And there may not even be a close second. Well, Jake Browning, albeit Jake Browning certainly would be the one guy that could challenge for that top spot. But the quarterback position loses quite a bit of talent in the Pac-12, of course, with Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen in particular moving on. Khalil Tate is back at Arizona. Manny Wilkins at Arizona State. But Justin Herbert may just be the best quarterback in the Pac-12. He only played in 7 games last year, and the Ducks went 6-1, albeit he did play the weak non-conference schedule for Oregon. But the Ducks were a much better offense and a better team with Justin Herbert last year, and he should be healthy and ready to go. They do lose some quality players at running back, including the all-time leading rusher at the school in Royce Freeman, and they lose their top 2 rushers, in fact, and have a very dependable running back coming back, but they're going to have to rely on some freshmen. Oregon has its top 6 pass catchers back from 2017. They also receive Jabari Hines coming in from Wake Forest as a grad transfer, who caught 53 passes from John Wolford and the Demon Deacons last season. The defense for Oregon under Jim Leavitt, keep this under consideration. The Ducks 2 years ago, when going 4-8, had one of the worst 10 deficiency defenses, meaning not necessarily against the yardage and the points, but in terms of efficiency. The advanced metrics said that Oregon had one of the 10 worst defenses in college football 2 years ago. bring in Jim Leavitt, who did wonders at Colorado as their defensive coordinator as they went from a 2 or 3 win team to a division champion the year before. And Jim Leavitt, the former South Florida coach, basically installed a very aggressive scheme that forced opponents into a lot of mistakes. Yes, they gave up more big plays than Oregon last year, but they also benefited from more aggressive play and from a veteran linebacking unit that might be the best in the Pac-12. All three of those guys are back. Their leading disruptive player on the defensive front with 15 tackles for loss is already back. He's back as well as most of the defensive secondary. So the Oregon defense, sneaky good, not great, not elite, not Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, but probably a top 40 unit based, again, on the advanced metrics from last season. And also considering that although the defensive line is going to be a bit thin, they're going to have to stay healthy up front and inexperienced, that the back seven on defense is really strong at Oregon. And again, the top 6 pass catchers come back for the Ducks, including they bring in Jabari Hines, 53 catches for Wake last year. And the running game needs some work, at least at the running back position. The offensive line brings back most of its starters and most of its starts from an experienced offensive line. And again, Duck fans have to be excited about Justin Herbert at quarterback. So I've looked at Oregon today in particular, and that leads me to some thoughts about the dark horses around college football. So if you'd like to chime in on the chat, I'll check it out in just a second. And maybe our topic, in addition to whatever you guys want to talk about, because regardless of what my theme is, I will answer any questions and comments that you have that maybe dark horses in each Power 5 conference. Who do you think could jump up and scare the elite teams and possibly grab a conference championship in the Power 5? Oregon? How about Arizona in the Pac-12 South? How about UCLA in the Pac-12 South Division? A lot of people like Texas, including myself in the Big 12. I have yet to make a prediction, but I like Texas. West Virginia, with the only returning full-time starting quarterback in Will Grier coming back. The Mountaineers getting a lot of pub as well. In the Big 10, who would be under the radar as a dark horse? I would think in the Western Division, it would be Purdue and Iowa. In the Big 10 Eastern Division, it's hard to call Michigan a dark horse with Shea Patterson at quarterback, the highest paid coach in college football, and a roster that's pretty loaded. I don't know that the Big 10 East has a dark horse that, in any reasonable thinking, could challenge for the division championship. In the ACC, I'm thinking that Georgia Tech could possibly be a dark horse that jumps up. And in the other division, NC State and Louisville have obviously been solid teams over the past few years. Maybe Boston College becomes that team after surprising many of us last year with their vaunted running attack led by A.J. Dillon. In the SEC, Mississippi State's getting most of that chic publicity, is the chic pick of possibly upsetting their way to an SEC Western Division championship. And in the East, I don't know. There's a team, I think, with Drew Lock back and Demarius Crockett on the offensive side of the ball for the Tigers, and Barry Odom lifting that team to 7 wins last year. A lot of people like Mizzou to maybe shake it up in the SEC Eastern Division. Most of us see South Carolina on the come after winning 3, then 6, then 8 or 9 games after the bowl victory last season against Michigan. Before I get to the chat, again, want to let you know that if you've missed some videos from the past several days, we have been hard at work. Alonzo1219 and Canes Shades join us to talk up Miami football this afternoon, along with Florida State and James Coleman from Gridiron Now. Yesterday, Ohio State talk with Steve Hellwagon from 247 Sports, and we also discussed Florida football with Graham Hall from Gators Sports as well. UCLA was front and center on Thursday with Mike Recolado from Gojo Bruin. We talked up the Penn State Nittany Lions as Tim Aiden joined us from Black Shoe Diaries. We had some Notre Dame talk mixed in there as well with Ben Belden joining us from the Slap the Sign network there with Fansided. and a couple conversations. I hope you guys enjoyed Mike Laval co-hosting or filling in as a host earlier this week to talk Texas and to talk Tennessee as well, with Charlie Burris from Orange and White, and of course Claire Crawford back with us a few nights ago from the Ozone to talk Ohio State. Matt Moscona joining us. It's always a fun discussion and insightful from Matt, who joins us from ESPN Radio Baton Rouge and New Orleans to talk LSU Tigers. And again, rivalry month is coming up in June. We are going to go crazy. That is my vision, to go crazy, to bring on representatives from both sides of all the great rivalries across college football to talk up the rivalry, do a little trash talking, and it should be a lot of fun. Let's see if anybody's joined the live chat and see what you guys have going tonight, as my live chat computer's giving me some problems disconnecting from the internet, but we'll get it fixed and figured out here in just a second. Don't know why that's an issue. So there's a number of teams in college football that I have not done a good job of covering during the off season, and most of that has to do with not having media contributors for those teams. So that's where I need your help. If you have any people that you love to listen to or read their commentaries, their articles, beat writers out there for any particular college football teams, I will take some suggestions and I will go after them. And I collected the names from the other night that you guys had. And again, the chat is letting me down. What is going on? I've got the internet fine here, but I don't have it fine there. Maybe it's my Mac is giving me all sorts of problems. That is very strange. It won't connect to the internet, but I'm connected right here. So some of the teams that I'm letting you guys down on at this point, because I just don't have the media contribution. And if that's no excuse, because certainly I will drive the analysis if I have to and do my research like I did today with Oregon, because I don't have an Oregon person. I no longer have anybody for Oklahoma, Auburn, Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan State come to mind, Louisville, NC State, some of those teams as well, that I would like to have somebody that I can contact at any time, like I do with Ohio State, Miami, USC, Michigan, and Clemson, and some other teams, to talk about those particular programs. Man, this live chat is letting me down. So you guys, obviously, you're online and you see the live chat. So it's not the live chat, it's the internet on this computer. That is the weirdest thing, that it's not connecting to the internet, because I'm connected right here. Trying to find something else here. I'm going to try one more time to connect to the internet. I believe I've been successful, although that's not the one I really want to use. We'll use it anyway. I'll jump on here and grab the chat, and hopefully you guys have some stuff to talk about, and we'll talk up some college football. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging in there. I think I've got things taken care of here. Dondre, I think he got his point across that he would like to see some Clemson coverage, I believe. Did I get that right, Dondre? You might have to type that out for me one more time. Ryan, how you doing tonight? Good to see you. Justin Herbert, Jake Browning, KJ Costello, Khalil Tate. Is that in order? That's about the way I would lay it out as well. I didn't see a whole lot of Khalil Tate other than the highlights, and those can be deceiving. Obviously, those are the good plays. I did see Tate play the bowl game against Purdue and play well most of the time against USC in a loss that at that point of the season gave the division championship to USC. Oregon could go 9-3. I think losses to Stanford, Washington, and Cal or Arizona. So the Ducks have a very favorable non-conference schedule. I scolded them just a few nights ago, or maybe sometime last week when we were talking Pac-12 future schedules and looked at the current schedule as well. Hate Oregon's schedule after the home and home with Nebraska the last 2 years, playing no one this season. Phil likes USC to win the Pac-12, or is that considered to be a dark horse? Phil, USC would not be a dark horse, not in the Pac-12. No. I like Cal this year in the Pac-12 North. Ryan, interesting. I'm going to have to brush up on the Golden Bears, see what they have coming back. Phil, how about teams that might flop? Teams that could flop. Could Oklahoma flop in the Big 12? Somebody has the potential of flopping in the Big 10 East just because of the other three teams being so difficult. So let's say, I don't know the schedules off the top of my head. I do know that Wisconsin and Penn State play. So Penn State, no Saquon Barkley, lose a lot on defense. So let's say they lose the 3 games within the division, the tough games against Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State. They've got Wisconsin on the other side. Maybe Penn State doesn't meet expectations this year. A flop in the ACC could be, again, Florida State with the difficult schedule and some of the issues that Florida State is facing right now and just trying to rebuild the program. And any coach in their first season could have a difficult time. Many people believe LSU could have a rough time. We know the challenge at quarterback, most likely going to be Joe Burrow. Miles Brennan will have something to say about that in August, but the schedule is brutal for the Tigers. SEC Western Division, Georgia, Florida, and Miami to deal with. So what are you guys thinking in terms of flops for teams that are expected, at least based on their brand, to do something big that could be 8-4, 7-5, 6-6 teams? LSU, maybe. Virginia Tech, maybe. Florida State, Penn State, maybe. Maybe Michigan goes down again, and suddenly Jim Harbaugh is looking at the hot seat. Elsewhere, Oklahoma, possibly. And who else could possibly flop? Of course, the big guns in the Pac-12 North have expected to rule the division are Washington and Stanford. USC could possibly flop. The Trojans have to figure out the quarterback position. Offensive line has been an issue the last few years. Lose their best running back and wide receiver in Deontay Burnett and Ronald Jones. Pretty stout on defense, though. Despite a couple losses, USC should be good on defense. Maybe they're a flop. All right, Ryan. Yeah, Washington could be a flop, but I do think they are pretty good. Maybe nor elite, not elite, good enough to get to the playoffs. I got to edit these typos while I read. Auburn takes the Tide out again, according to Fill-In. LSU superfan, go Tigers. These BC have best running back in the country. A.J. Dillon, the best running back in the country. Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin. J.K. Dobbins, Ohio State. DeAndre Swift, Georgia. Najee Harris, Damian Harris, Alabama. Who else do we have out there? Trey Sermon. Anderson at Oklahoma. Who do you guys like at the best running backs? We will have a number of running back videos for you guys as soon as I determine who the top 10 in the nation are. Sometime this summer, I'm knocking out the top 10 at every position in college football and going to knock out the top 5 at every position. Hopefully, this is the goal. Top 5 at every position in every conference. was supposed to do the Pac-12 this week at running back and defensive line. And unfortunately, that caved in. Michigan, according to Fill In, flops this season. So you guys are going to have to define a flop. A flop for Ohio State and a flop for Kansas State are two different things. Kansas State's supposed to go 8-4, so 4-8, 5-7. That's a flop for Kansas State. Ohio State's supposed to win them all or go 11-1. So if Ohio State goes 9-3, many would consider that to be a flop. Just to make a comparison there. Who will be the best group of 5 team this year? You, Chenny, you tell me. Have yet to research the group of 5. So last year it was obviously Central Florida. Houston always in the mix. Boise State, based on some of the rankings I've seen and some of the ratings, I know Boise State's defense is supposed to be legitimately one of the 10 or 15 best in the country, not just in the group of 5, one of the very best units in the country. So Boise State, I would expect to be in the hunt, definitely. How about Lane Kiffin's crew at FAU? Does Miami go undefeated? Well, the Canes certainly just have the Florida State game out of division. Virginia Tech will be the biggest challenge within the division, although then you've got that next tier of Georgia Tech and Pitt and North Carolina. I expect to be a little bit better. Who am I missing in the division that could be somewhat of a challenge? And then they've got LSU. So basically Miami's season, unless somebody jumps up at them like Pitt did last year, is going to come down to Florida State and LSU and Virginia Tech. I think Miami goes 11-1 or 10-2, and their one loss for sure will be at BC on a Friday night. Yeah, that's going to be a good one. BC showed us something last year. Bryce Love at Stanford. Yes, Ryan, thank you very much. Bryce Love was probably the second best back in college football, most people would determine, and probably the best coming back. Eli likes a close win for the Canes against LSU. Dondre, Notre Dame, Georgia, and Miami going to flop. Dondre, what's a flop for Georgia? 10-2? I don't see them losing more than 2 games against that schedule. They've got Auburn. That's the toughest game they've got to deal with in the conference. South Carolina, Florida. It's not a difficult schedule for the Bulldogs this year. They do have LSU. Ryan, a flop for Georgia would be not winning the East. Agreed. If Boise State joined the Pac-12, would they be as successful as they are in the Mountain West? Not year to year, they wouldn't be. Maybe in one particular year because the Pac-12 has dropped. You would think, obviously, Boise State would go to the Pac-12 North. If you guys want to do some digging on my channel, you'll go to, I should look it up and send it, but I restructured all the Power 5. It must have been about this time last year, I think it was. And I put Boise State in the Pac-12, and I restructured the whole thing and moved West Virginia to a Big East conference with a bunch of teams that I thought it made a whole lot of sense, and it got everyone to 12 teams in every conference, and I took Boise State and put them in the Pac-12. If Boise State played in the Pac-12 North this year, what do they go? They play 9 games in the Pac-12. Do they go 7-2, 6-3? I certainly see something in that range, most likely 6-3. They lose to a Washington, a Stanford, and maybe a USC, or somebody unexpected. They lose to a Washington State. Not that that's unexpected. They just played last year, and Boise State should have won that game. They were up by 3 scores in the fourth quarter against the Cougars before Luke Falk came storming back, and it was a lot of defensive plays actually for Washington State, a lot of turnovers for the Broncos that blew that game. So what are you thinking, Ryan? I'm thinking Boise State this season with a typical Pac-12 schedule in the North would go 6-3. And I don't know who they're playing out of conference off the top of my head that is any good, but they go 9-3 or 8-4 overall, but 6-3 in the Pac-12. LSU's running back Clyde Edwards, Hilaire. Yeah, Hilaire. Yeah, going to be a breakout player this year. Okay. I've not heard good things about LSU's running backs. I've not heard that they've recruited, nor any of the guys that we've heard talked about being nearly as good as the guys that we've seen. Jeremy Hill, Leonard Fournette, Darius Geis, the number one guys for LSU. But we will see right out of the gate against Miami in that front seven. LSU offense looking good. Is it really fill in? Is it looking good? They lost their best wide receiver. They lost their running back. They had offensive line departures. They've got a quarterback who's never played. Does the LSU offense look good? Miami will go 10-2 and lose to the only good teams on the schedule. Typical. Miami's overrated. Quarterback problems. And we went nuts on the quarterback situation of Miami today with Alonzo 1219 and Kane's Shades. If you guys missed that, have at it and listen to that discussion, because Kane Shades was defending Malik Rozier to the hilt. Alonzo can't stand him, and I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't think he's an elite quarterback. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's probably one of the 30 or 35 best quarterbacks in the country in FBS. And if you're Miami, that's not what you want. Live from New York, it's Saturday Night Live. Yeah, NCIS fanatic. What was I going to go with? College football talk again. So why not? Saturday Night Live. We'll compete with the boys in New York. I've not heard good things about anything on the LSU offense except the wide receivers. Yeah. And they picked up one of the very best. Who is the kid that they picked up? A 5-star. Can't think of his name. They signed one of the best wide receivers in the country. LSU offense looks good. Yeah. I just don't know where that comment came from, but they will have a chance to prove it right away with Miami. All right, guys. Of course, subscribe here if you haven't already. We talk college football each and every day. We bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry, and you get my analysis as well. And Rivalry Month is coming up in June. And so I hope you guys are excited about that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Bring on the Oklahoma guy, the Texas guy, and they go at it. Auburn, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, on and on and on. Even had Tim Aiden from Black Shoe Diaries with Penn State and SB Nation the other day ask me, are you going to have me argue against an Ohio State guy or a Pitt guy? And I said, well, you tell me, who's your rival? And we talked about that. And we're not going to keep it down to one. Think of Florida. How many rivals does Florida? They've got a lot of rivalries to the Gators. I think they should limit that. But Georgia, Florida State, Tennessee. Tennessee's got a lot of rivals. They've got Florida. They've got Georgia. They've got Kentucky. They've got Vanderbilt. And, of course, Oklahoma. They've got the main two in Texas and Oklahoma State. All right, guys. Dark horses. Yeah. The dark horses on a quick glance for me, one from each conference, would be Oregon out of the Pac-12. Would be, do we consider Texas a dark horse or West Virginia? Because I think I might pick Texas to win the Big 12 after 8-5, but they're expected to challenge for the conference championship. I'm talking about teams that are probably on that next tier that nobody expects to win the conference. Oregon, Iowa, West Virginia, Mississippi State. They're the chic dark horse, but I don't think anyone expects them to beat the teams in front of them, but they expect them to be good and maybe above Auburn and LSU. South Carolina, dark horse. Virginia Tech, dark horse. Boston College. And then flops, people have talked about Georgia, Notre Dame, Maybe Penn State flops this year. Wisconsin, I just don't see them flopping in that division against those opponents. Who do we expect over the next 2 or 3 years to possibly take off? We've seen some signs out of Purdue this past season. What about PJ Fleck in Minnesota possibly challenging in that division? And the obvious choice would be Nebraska and Scott Frost. So not necessarily this year, but I would expect in the Big Ten that team on the rise, that program that has potential to surge would be Nebraska in the West, Michigan in the East, Maryland, possibly DJ Durkin with consecutive top 20 recruiting classes. In the Pac-12, that program might be UCLA with Chip Kelly, of course. In the Big 12, on the rise, Texas. They're the obvious choice. Mike Gundy, it'll be interesting to see if he can stabilize the situation there. He loses his main pass combination with James Washington and Mason Rudolph, and he's got a three-way battle for the starting quarterback position. Down the road, Texas A&M, again, a 2 to 3 year window to see if there's anything there. Florida's the obvious choice to improve the program under Dan Mullen in the next few years, and I think those are the choices right there. All right, LSU picked up the number 1 wide receiver in the country, and Terrence Marshall. That's the kid's name I was trying to think of. Thank you. And the Texas Tech transfer that had 1,000 yards receiving. The offense is very talented, just got to put it all together. Yeah, can't think of the Texas Tech kid either. I just read about him the other day. Boy, the names are just leaking out of my mind here. Ryan says South Carolina considers Georgia a rival. Georgia doesn't consider South Carolina because the chickens don't stop clucking even when they lose. Yeah, so for South Carolina, we'll talk Clemson. We'll put them together. Clemson's got a few rivals in South Carolina and Florida State. Florida State's got Florida, but they also have Miami, and they also have Clemson. Georgia, yeah, Florida, Auburn, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia Tech. Well, Georgia, I'm basically thinking, Ryan, Georgia has Florida. They've got Georgia Tech, and they have Auburn, the South's oldest rivalry. Michigan State is a Big Ten dark horse. So Michigan State, NCIS Fanatic 21, would have to win the Big Ten for me to consider that they actually pulled through as a dark horse. We expect Michigan State to go 8-4, 9-3. But if they knock off Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, if they get at least past those three, don't have to win all 3 games, but get past them all and go to the Big Ten championship game, yes, Michigan State, that would be a dark horse rising to the top. I would think everyone aside from OSU is a dark horse in the conference. You're not too far off, Johnny. And welcome back, Johnny. Good to see you on the chat there. Michigan State and Stanford are dark horses. So fill in, help me with Stanford. Isn't Stanford and Washington, aren't they the 2 teams out of the Pac-12 North? So I don't know that Stanford winning the Pac-12. Now, if you say they're going to make a college football playoff appearance, that to me would be them coming through as a dark horse. Stick 118, good to see you. Want to remind everyone of all the content we posted in recent days. Tons of Miami, Florida State, Ohio State, USC, UCLA, South Carolina, Penn State, and more. What do you guys think of the debate of Central Florida and them celebrating a national championship? Do you guys think it's obviously not legit? They didn't win the national championship, but I side with Central Florida. They won all their games. They beat the team that beat the 2 national championship game participants. Hang the banner, throw the parade. I back them. I'm fully in support of Central Florida claiming that they won the national championship. Do I believe they won the national championship? No. Do I believe that they're the best team in the country? No. Absolutely not. Are they one of the 5 best teams in the country last season? No. Top 10? Probably in that range. probably in that range. Johnny says it's sad. But this is their opportunity to do that, because it'll probably never come again for Central Florida to be able to say we went undefeated and therefore we can claim a championship, and for it to line up so beautifully, the argument for them that they beat Auburn, that beat Georgia and Alabama, and Central Florida, in fact, beat them on the same field that Auburn, Georgia, and Alabama played. They had a fantastic season and great bowl win, and it gets taken away with natty talk. I think Central Florida should try and play us like what we did in 2012. Yes. Ohio State's 12-0 2012 started with a game against Miami of Ohio in which Devin Smith made a ridiculous one-handed catch, Urban Meyer's first win in Columbus, and then I believe it was week 2 or 3, they played Blake Bortles and Central Florida. It was not an easy game for the Buckeyes. They won it something in the 31-16 range. They played UAB that year and only beat them by 2 touchdowns. That undefeated Ohio State team got off to a very slow start, really kicked it in against Michigan State. That was their first real quality win. They only beat Cal by a touchdown on a long touchdown pass in the fourth quarter. Then they kicked it in. They beat Michigan State and Wisconsin in particular down the stretch, and beat Michigan. Jordan Hare is magical. I used to live right across the street pretty much. What do you guys think of matchups? So most of you guys were on the line over the past week or two when I reviewed future schedules and some of the great matchups that are upcoming in college football. Ohio State and TCU, of course, this year. Ohio State and Oregon down the road. Oklahoma, UCLA this year. UCLA is going to play Georgia, Alabama, Miami, and all the other games we discussed. Who would you like to see play? Who hasn't played, at least in a long, long period of time, that you would like to see play? Auburn playing Penn State home and home. That's an interesting series coming up in the next 5 years. Looking forward to that. My dad used to own the Heart of Auburn restaurant, but it's gone now. I think there's a Rite Aid drugstore there. Notre Dame went 12-0 in 2012 as well. Yes, they did. Then they went 12-1. They had to play a championship game, and it was not one of the better games we've seen in recent years. 42-14 does not do that butt-kicking justice. LSU, Miami. Yeah, Stanford and Alabama. Okay, Pitt, Notre Dame. Florida, Georgia. Okay, how about Florida State, Georgia? That's one we haven't seen recently, Florida State and Georgia. I just am glad to see some SEC teams playing on the road, going to the Pac-12, going to the West Coast to take on. Auburn's going out to Cal. Georgia's going to the Rose Bowl to face UCLA. Penn State is hosting Auburn. Alabama is finally going somewhere. It's going to take another 5 years or so, but they're going somewhere. I know that they've got Miami at a neutral site. And Alabama, shoot. Can somebody look up Alabama's future schedules? Because they do go somewhere. They finally get out of the South and they go somewhere, but I can't remember. And of course, they've re-upped with USC for 2020. Not even Manti Te'o's girlfriend could save Notre Dame in that natty. Yeah, it was ugly, ugly, ugly. We've talked about greatest national championship games of all time. We've thrown that out there a number of times. Is that USC Texas is typically the popular pick. This last year was amazing. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Miami, a really good one. There haven't been too many. The 2 Clemson, Alabama games were good, especially the second one was more down to the wire. Haven't watched your last Miami videos. I can only hear Cam complain about Malik Rozier so many times before I get sick of it. So the point, Ryan, I was making to our two guests today, Alonzo and Kane Shades, was that there has to be a reason why Malik Rozier is hanging on to the Miami quarterback job. I can't believe, well, maybe he's improving. That was his first year starting. So he did play 13 games. He did seem to progress late in the season, but it wouldn't be the first time that a quarterback started for the first time a full season, had his ups and downs, improved over the course of the offseason, spring practice, summer drills, and then came back and was a much better player. And maybe Mark Richt is seeing that. Maybe it's also what I talked about today, N'Kosi Perry possibly not picking up the offense. Everyone who has seen the two guys play, seen them throw the ball more than anything, because Rozier's got a good set of wheels, but seeing them throw the ball says N'Kosi Perry's arm talent is so much better than Malik Rozier's ceiling that he should be on the field. Perry should be on the field. I've got to think that he's not grasping the offense. And that's why Malik Rozier continues to be listed as the number one quarterback. Or Mark Richt is just fooling us all, and it's going to be open field, open game, open season for quarterback battle in Miami in August. Bama's overrated. If you are honest, Auburn gave them a beating. Bama was overrated before Tua arrived. Bama's overrated. Okay. I did not think Alabama should make the college football playoff, not because they were not one of the four best teams in the country, but because they did not have the resume with the number of wins. But in terms of being overrated, I think it's almost impossible to overrate Alabama and Nick Saban right now. They are on a 10-year run, considering the level of competition and today's college football, that could be argued as the best 10-year run in the history of college football. And I know Alabama haters don't want to hear that. And there have been stretches of time and dominance by the likes of Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Army, if you want to go way, way back into the 40s, more recently by Nebraska and Miami, that maybe record-wise would be better than Alabama's last 10 years, but it wouldn't be that much better because Alabama's barely lost more than one game a year. But considering the level of competition and having to play a championship game against the number two team time after time after time after time, and now winning, what is it? They've won 2 national championships under the new system. So they had to beat 2 teams twice in this format. So they beat Washington and Clemson, of course. Or was that the year they lost? No, 2015. 2015. I'm losing it. Alabama, the year that they beat Clemson. Clemson beat Oklahoma. And Alabama beat Michigan State, of course, 38-0. Hello. Michigan State and Clemson the first time, and then coming back last year to dominate Clemson and come back and beat Georgia down 13. The Alabama run has been exceptional. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan. I would not believe that I would forget a game from 3 years ago. But I'd like to see us schedule Florida State in the non-conference. So NCIS Fanatic 21, you may remember or have read about the Florida State, Ohio State games, and the Noles have not been good to the Buckeyes in their history of games. 1981-82 at the Shoe, Florida State won both of those games. One of those games in which Art Schlechter set an Ohio State passing record with over 450 yards through the air, but Florida State won. And then the Noles beat a really good Ohio State team in 1997, 2 teams ranked in the top 5. And Florida State beat them in the 97/98 Sugar Bowl. we should have gotten in over Michigan State in 2015. Yes, that Ohio State team was better than Michigan State, but Michigan State deserved the nod, of course. That's not even debatable. But yeah, that Ohio State team was one of the 4 best teams in the country, and that's pure opinion. But 12-1, beat Michigan, Notre Dame, on and on and on. All right. So if we would have had 8 teams this past season, who you guys thinking would have made it this past season? Would you go Central Florida, USC, Ohio State? Who are we missing? You'd probably have to go Wisconsin. So you'd have 3 teams out of the Big Ten out of the 8, and that's ironic because the Big Ten got shut out. But if it would have been expanded to 8, most likely the Big Ten would have had 3 teams in the national playoff, because it's difficult to get anyone in there over Ohio State or Wisconsin and leave them out, even if you include the group of 5 with Central Florida, because everybody else, Wisconsin didn't win the Big Ten, but they only lost 1 game, and Ohio State, of course, won the Big Ten. So it might have been a Big Ten heavy 8-team playoff, but none of them made the 4, and that's what counted. All right, guys. I appreciate you jumping on the live feed, especially since this wasn't scheduled. I do have a quick question, so hang on real quick. And again, any content suggestions or media contributors that you would like to see, please let me know. But Van will get to the Stanford quarterback situation. I would believe that KJ Costello is going to start at Stanford. I can't imagine that he's not going to start the season at Stanford. I want for you guys to let me know if you're receiving the notifications. So, for example, today, I think it was around noon that I sent out a Florida State and Miami notification for those live streams. And I just want to make sure that those are going out, those are being received, and you guys know that they're coming up. Because I got to admit, I'm seeing, and maybe this is based on this channel not just being a Florida channel or Georgia channel or Notre Dame or whoever it is, and those are more dedicated audiences. But I've got 4,400 subscribers, and typically I strike up a live chat, and we might have, right now we've got 15 people watching. We typically have more than that, but not many more. And I check out some of the other live streams for college football and other sports, and they will be representing channels that have less subscribers than I do, but they'll have 250, 300 people on the live stream. So is there something I'm missing there that you guys can help me out with? Because I would love to really boost these live streams. And this is one of the reasons why I stopped the editing mess of chopping up all these video segments. I want to hit you guys up live so I can get the feedback and we can have a discussion and debate on college football. And I think it's working out real well, but I'm not getting that viewership that I would anticipate with 4,400 subscribers. And I'm really blasting it out on Facebook and Twitter, and my guests are blasting it out. And I have audiences for certain college football teams, but not others. And I'm not going to just focus on the teams that get a response. So yes, when I do Miami videos, you guys love it, and I get a big response, and I get a lot of views. But this is going to be a college football channel. I can't possibly cover everyone, but I want to cover the big games and the big teams. I want to try to cover everyone. That's the ultimate goal, that I'm a complete college football channel. And I have a full website where every team, every conference is covered, even the group of 5. And I've got media contributors that will post their own videos, and we will cover the entire game. But being one guy, I'm trying to get to as many teams as possible. And I'm going to go to those teams that matter. I'm going to emphasize USC more so than Utah, and I'm going to emphasize Miami more than Virginia. obvious for obvious reasons. That doesn't have to be explained. But would I like to talk Virginia football? Is there a Virginia football audience out there? Believe it or not, there is. If you look at the Virginia SB Nation site and some of the other sites from 247 and Rivals, they do rather well because there are Virginia football fans out there. But if I post a Virginia football video, I get 35 views. So basically, and I'm going to go back through it here because you guys probably have a lot of good things to say, is that I notice on other channels, not just necessarily on college football, but other sports as well, but college football, yes, that other people have smaller subscriber bases than me, but they are more successful with the live streams. And I think we have some really good live streams with good guests, good discussion, good debate. And so I want you guys to help me out with that. So let me know about notifications if you're getting those and what else I could do to get the word out and build the audience going forward as we try to hit you up with everything possible, every possible angle, top 10 at every position in college football, top 5 in every conference. We've got rivalry month in June. I don't know what else. Oh boy, can you guys hear me? Am I back? I'm watching the live stream. I don't see myself. Looks like I've let you guys down. All right. Are we back on? Hey, can you guys see me? You guys let me know if you can see me. Johnny says we're good. All right. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. When I was downstairs, I used to have all these hardwired, and my Wi Fi has been extremely good now that I'm upstairs, but I do really need to hardwire the internet. All right. Sorry about that. You guys hung in there with me. But basically, what I was saying was I want to make sure that I'm taking advantage of these live streams and I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to build an audience. And you guys are great. I'm talking to the wrong people. I understand because you guys are here as much as you can be. And I know you have lives out there, you have other things to do and other interests and families and all sorts of other things to do. But you guys are great. But again, I see larger live streams out there for people that have smaller subscriber bases. So I'm trying to do all I can to build a college football audience. And I'm trying to bring the content that you guys want to hear. So all I can go by is what I would like to hear. And I love lists and I love to rank things. And that's why I carve through schedules and rate schedules. And I'm trying to rate all the teams in FBS and rank them 130 all the way up to number 1. And I've only done research on about 6 teams. So that could be difficult to get done this summer, but I'm going to do my best to do exactly that. All right. Let's see if you guys are on here and there's been anything here. Cross promote with Sports Gaming 1. He just hit 10,000 subs. Get him on the program. All right. Sports Gaming 1. He's been suggested to me, and I'll try that, Johnny. Thank you. Oh, Mark, I don't know for how long you will have Savannah covering Georgia, but you could try to get Jeff Sentel from Dog Nation Daily for Georgia recruiting. He's one of the best recruiting reporters. Jeff Sentel. I'll try him from UGA. See there, I'm sorry, VHB, however you pronounce that. You've got a good thought there. So I'm not extremely consistent with my live stream. So you guys don't know that I'm going to be here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock or every Tuesday at noon. What I've typically been doing is doing a little bit late Sunday afternoon, late Monday afternoon, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and the other ones are just kind of wild cards. So that's based on my own personal work schedule and family schedule and what I'm able to do. But that is a great point. So if you guys and others know that I'm going to be here every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock to talk Florida State, then people will plan for that and know that. Mark, I watched a live stream last night that had 2,500 people on it. NCIS Fanatic 21. Who was that with 2,500 on a live stream? Uncle Lou. Yeah, we'll get Uncle Lou. I ran into Uncle Lou's videos a few months ago. The guy's hilarious. He definitely takes a different approach than me, and that's the great thing. We can all do it our own way. You guys are good in receiving notifications. That's good to know. We talked about the playoffs and who should have made it. All right, you guys had some great suggestions. Uncle Lou, Jeff Santel for Georgia and Sports Gaming 1. And you guys have some great thoughts there. George, you're beautiful. I was talking to my son when I saw you were on, and I told him I'd call him right back. Interview Uncle Lou. Yeah, I see all sorts of people out there, you guys, and that I would love to talk to and get on here as well. I don't want to become just a host and facilitator, and that's one of the big reasons you guys see me do schedule analysis and rankings and ratings of my own, because I've got my own opinion, and I want to talk college football, and I want to be the guy that's looked at as, hey, this is the guy that runs the channel, the best college football channel on YouTube, and hopefully beyond that at some point here. And you guys respect this channel, and others respect it as being the gold standard for college football. And we've got a lot of work to do, but we're going to stay after it. But that's one of the reasons why I continue to pound home my own analysis, in addition to getting great contributors on as well. All right, 2nd and 26 in the Natty. Yeah, we know all about that, Dennis. Sports Gaming is an Auburn fan, but does a lot of research for a lot of different teams. Be good if you try predictions. So fill in predictions. I will have predictions. I predict every week all the games, all the top 25 games, all the games that matter. And so you will see those starting in week 1. And even before that, I will predict the conference races and the college football playoffs. So that you will see. And I know that I'm going to have to back it up, but you can just look at the videos, and they're all time stamped, so they verify the percentages. But the predictions are pretty good. The predictions against the spread are pretty solid. You know, something in the 60% range against the spread. My confidence picks against the spread more like 65, 68%. And then my straight money line selections of the top 25 games are more 82%. Mark Dice was the guy who had 2,500 on the stream. The chat went by so fast I couldn't read anything. Mark Dice. So this is a college football guy, NCIS Fanatic 21. There's a guy on YouTube called LSU Dad. I think you would enjoy him. I've caught LSU Dad. Not that I've sat and watched him. I'm not really good about consuming content. I'm creating so much that I don't have patience, because I'm thinking about all the things I need to do, that I typically don't sit and watch these guys, but I'll kind of check it out a little bit. And I actually did contact LSU Dad, and I forgot about it. He got back to me and said, hey, yeah, I'll come on. And then we just didn't hook up. There's a guy on YouTube called LSU Dad. Yeah. Mark Dice is political. Okay. No politics. No college football out of Mark Dice. Okay. We'll cross him off. And then all the people that you know on the national scene, since I have been successful in getting Phil Steele. Unfortunately, I saw Phil Steele about 3 months ago at ESPN. And I approached him and said, Phil, and he remembered me from the one time that he was on, and he was a great guest. I kept him on for about 45 minutes, and he was tremendous. This was about 2 years ago. So he recognized me from our conversation. And I asked him to come back on the show. And unfortunately, based on his ESPN contract, his no compete, he's not able to come back on. He said, if you can work it out with ESPN, then I'll come back on. But that would be a nightmare of red tape to try to get through. Peter Burns, good guest, great guest, and so very gracious to give up his time. He is extremely busy, but I can get Peter Burns on just about any time. Jerry DiNardo's been on a few times, and I want to get him back. You guys good with Jerry DiNardo? Anybody else on any of these Pac-12, Big Ten, SEC networks, ACC networks coming? Mark Dice is political. No, he's not. He's actually a political analyst. He's actually has no internet in. Okay. All right. Very good. We'll go after all of them. Plus, again, I try all sorts of people like Feinbaum, and anytime I look in my Twitter, there are suggestions of people to get, and I go after them. And that's the reason why I've gotten on all these SEC Country and Gridiron Now people recently. Yeah. Most of these people are cheerleaders, George, and there's nothing wrong with that. They love their team. They have their team. You guys, this is just the way I approach it. So I'm just a little bit different in that even though I love college football as much as anybody, I love it. I love it. I love it. I just take a neutral stance because I want to bring forth strong neutrality, analytics, good discussion, good debate, and not be a homer. And I have nothing against the people that are homers, that get on and pound their fists and pound the table in support of their team. I think that's great. That's just not the way I want to approach it. I want us to have fair discussion and debate here and not stick up for any particular team, but let the results on the field drive our opinion. Oh, some background. Yeah, you would like to see some background. So I've looked into some production software so I can put up some music, some graphics, font people's names, have an intro, throw up some graphics of records and rankings and all of that. So that's going to take some time for me to first order, and then secondly for me to learn. That's going to take me away from this to a certain extent. So that's what I'm shooting for. Yeah, I would love to go with some kind of banner that looked good that said Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And one of you I can thank for that voice of college football tag, because as soon as somebody wrote that to me and said, hey, Mark, since you are the voice of college football, I said, I got to take that and run with it. You're totally right, though. Fill in. I need to fill in the background. But I would rather have a blank, nothing back here, than have something that looks stupid. My son thinks I should have all sorts of shelves and pennants and jerseys. I don't think I'm going to do that. I've also seen these YouTubers that have really clean, cool-looking, sleek looks with like a glass desk and basically kind of nothing like I do, but it's lit in such a way that it's either just like really white with some cool lighting. There's all sorts of ways I can go there. When's the next time you're talking Georgia? Well, Ryan, we can talk Georgia anytime with Savannah Lee Richardson. She's always willing to come on. Otherwise, it's just going to be me talking about Georgia, and I've got to do my homework. And I'm going to, as soon as we get off here, I'm going to tweet or try to track down Jeff Sentel from Georgia Sports Daily or whatever the outfit is. So, Ryan, that's when we'll be able to do that. That Notre Dame video wasn't Mark's best work. Did somebody cite our latest Notre Dame video? So there's a very tragic and horrible story connected with that. There was a family emergency for our guest, Ben Belden. He had to jump off the line, and we were not able to finish the Notre Dame video. Tennessee has fans. If you guys want to hear somebody who knows Tennessee football and has a unique perspective and a very strong perspective coming from a very smart guy, it's Mike Laval, who comes on here on a regular basis to talk Tennessee. And he recently talked Tennessee, and we posted the video right here with Charlie Burris of Orange and White Report. And actually, Mike was telling me one of the reasons I don't get many Tennessee views is because there are so many Tennessee bloggers and broadcasters out there online that the market's saturated. Dog Nation Daily. Yes. Okay, Ryan. That's the outfit for Jeff Sentel. About your Notre Dame guest. Yeah. Oh, that's very sad. His family's okay. I'll be sure to keep them in my prayers. That's very nice. Please do. An Ohio State fan just like me. Please never let Tennessee fans back to hijack your channel. I cringed so hard. Ryan, hey, that's what we do. We cover everyone. And NCIS Fanatic 21 is still wanting me to go after Mike Leach. So this is something I've explained in the past. So for those of you that have heard this, please, you can yawn a few times. And for everyone else, I used to have on football coaches, head football coaches on here. Now, the only two I had from the Power Five were Cal and Oregon State, Gary Anderson and Sonny Dykes at the time. Of course, they've both been fired since, but this was about 3 to 4 years ago. But it took me so much time to form a form letter and send it out to all the sports information directors for all the 130 FBS programs. And then you can imagine I'm going to get shut down automatically by 95% of them. And then I'm going to play email tag back and forth, and they're going to ask me all sorts of stipulations about what I'm going to ask. And it just wasn't worth it. But man, if I could have on Mike Leach or any Power 5 coach, that would be phenomenal. And again, I've had Oregon State and Cal on. I've also had Ball State and Utah State and South Alabama and Air Force. I had the Air Force coach Troy Calhoun on just prior to spring practice, and that got 25 views because, again, Air Force people aren't watching this. Many Air Force people have better things to do, but even the football fans don't know to come here to watch that. But where can you find long form interviews, like 15-minute interviews with head football coaches? That's what I was attempting to do, but it just, the overhead and the time involved was ridiculous. All right. But I will keep trying. And maybe when I get to a certain size, they'll start to take me more seriously. And Purdue and Pitt and a few others have somewhat taken me seriously. They've asked about me, and they've looked at it, and they've considered it. And again, I got Cal and Oregon State to get their head coaches on to talk. But to be able to have on head football coaches and coordinators, and this might be the best time to go after that since it is the dead time, possibly, or they're on vacation. This is the only time during the year they can actually take a vacation. Might not be a good time. Mark, why do you think Costello will start next year just because he started most of last season? Yeah, I got to admit, I've not analyzed it. Sure, I saw Costello play against TCU in the bowl game. I saw him play against USC. I thought he had a pretty good game there. What other Stanford games did I see? I saw the Notre Dame game. I saw the Washington game. I saw them play Oregon State. And I don't remember if he played in all of those games. I believe he did. So I saw him a good 5 games last year against the better teams for the most part. And I want you, VAHB, VAHB. So if I'm screwing that up, just let me know. I want you to tell me, because I'll talk some Stanford football and I'll look into it. I used to have a great Stanford guy, Donald King, unfortunately no longer comes on the show because he's no longer in the business. But wants you to let me know who you think is going to start, and we will talk some Stanford football. Again, I need some media contributors to come on for that particular program because I lost Don King. I would love if the top YouTube college football channels came together, make criteria, and make a real committee. Maybe do the debate live or just a ranking. Johnny, do you follow a number of us? If you do, that would be a great suggestion. I would love that. We could have a big panel discussion. That would be great. So let me give you the grand plan. I don't know that this is ever going to happen. This could go in a number of directions. Either this is always just kind of a very, very small business and hobby. That would be great. I love it. But of course, I've been in the past a sportscaster, and I will give you guys the big, long story at some point. But I've alluded to that in the past, and I've explained it once or twice over the course of the last few years. But I'm not going to go into it right now. But I've got a sportscasting background, and so I would love to build up this to the point where I'm a freelancer. I do radio hits, TV hits. I'm online. I'm writing. I love to write, and I'm doing that, and that's my career. Or I build it up as a business, and think of doing this college football channel and doing it, continuing on YouTube, but also building it on its own website platform where it's almost like an SB Nation. You know, where you go to SB Nation and there's the overall SB Nation, but then it's broken down into sports and then another sub tier of teams and so forth and so on. But I would only do that with college football. So you would go to MarkRogersTV.com. And if you were a Purdue fan, you'd go to the Purdue, and sure, I may have some things to say about Purdue, but I can't cover everyone myself. But what I would have media contributors from every team, and they would be posting the videos on the team reports and the recruiting and the rankings and the analysis for their particular team and conference. And it would just be a video, basically a video model of what SB Nation does currently. That's the vision. That would be cool. You would be like the Avengers. 2 words, Davis Mills. Yeah. Well, yes. So we haven't seen Davis Mills play, but he's a stud. Yes. I gotcha. So you're thinking he takes you to the next level. Maybe he does. I don't know. I know that he's incredible. We've talked about him on here a number of times, and unfortunately, it's probably been after or before you joined the channel here. But we've talked about him many times, but I can't go off of high school tape and what he's done. I don't even think he was an early enrollee, was he? Johnny, I would love at the top YouTube channels. Yeah, we went through that. Fill in likes the idea. So yeah, there's a number of ways to go about this, but those are a few right there. So you guys are great. I appreciate you letting me just pound home ideas about content and contributors and the vision I have for my channel and platform, and appreciate it. So if you go to MarkRogersTV.com, basically what you see is a redirect to YouTube. So I do have a domain and I have a website. It's just not used. Therefore, I redirect everything to here because I started a website and it was just too much overhead at the time. But I hung on to it because I want to keep it, because that's the vision, to actually use the website. About 4, USG1, College Football Lifer, and Gridiron Expert are the top contributors. I know. I think at least 6 are needed. And fill in once more, Keeley from USC. Yeah, Keeley's supposed to come back, and she's supposed to talk about the most exciting wins for USC and the most excruciating losses and her favorite player and best player. And she told me that she would come back. So I will attempt that again to get Keeley back on to talk USC football and make you happy, fill in. You didn't like to see Danielle Alvari on to talk UCLA the other night. Guess not. You're still looking for Keeley. Okay. All right, Johnny Bays, I love it. Why don't you throw out the same idea to those other guys? Because I would be happy to take part in anything like that. Don't want to miss this from Ryan. For more clarification, it's Dog Nation Daily of SEC Country Live, which is part of Cox Media Group. If that will help you track Jeff down, his Twitter is just Jeff Sentel. So the other thing to keep in mind is these various people who have websites, I ask them to post the videos, but I try to ask kindly and not put any pressure on them because they're kind enough to come on, but to let them know at the same time that some fan bases haven't found me, so their video is going to be seen by 50 people. So for example, Steve Hellwag, it's late. For example, Steve Hellwagon from 24/7 Sports and Bucknuts, the last two segments we've done on Ohio State football, he has posted to 247 Sports. So that is going to help as well. That helped me a few years ago when I had at least a dozen SB Nation people who posted my videos on a regular basis, and that got me going. And that's one of the big reasons, and I will forever be indebted to Cam Underwood, that many of you Miami fans know about me, is because I had Cam come on all the time, and he would turn around and post my videos on State of the U, and it brought Miami fans over. Now, if I could replicate that about 25 or 30 times, then we got something going. All right. Rose Bowl has to hurt. What are we talking there, Dennis? Notre Dame had to hurt USC last year. Yeah, it was ugly, 49-14. George, appreciate the support as always. If you guys, I have no idea what AEIOUS slave means. I don't even possibly want to know, but that's George. And if you guys want to read some hilarious comments, and George, I hope you know that I appreciate the comments. And just because I can't even come close to responding to about 10% of them, that I still read them and appreciate them. George is hilarious. George should probably have his own college football channel. Johnny Bay, so yeah, it's a good year if Notre Dame beats USC. Dave Biddle. I've tried Dave Biddle. So Biddle works with Steve Hellwagon, but for some reason he doesn't come on, but Steve comes on. And I've only tried Dave Biddle a couple times. So, and it's difficult to connect with somebody on Twitter. And my rule with Twitter is I don't follow anyone who doesn't follow me. And so I'm not going to go. I don't follow Herb Street and Fowler and Feinbaum and those guys because they're not going to follow me. And then out of the people that follow me, I either follow them back because they're personal friends, of course, or if they have a legitimate website. And even if they're not big, if they're trying, if they're legitimate, then I will follow them back. Or if they've got some kind of massive audience and they may not be related to sports, but they're some kind of entrepreneur, I'll follow them back. But Dave Biddle, I've contacted him. So if you're not following each other on Twitter, then you hope that you just tweet them and they're going to see it. And I've tried that a few times with Dave Biddle, and he has not responded. But thank you. I will continue to try to get Dave on the show. SC Country's last show is June 30th. Maybe you can do something with the remainder of what's there at that time. And I have no idea what that is. So you guys know so much more about what's out there than I do, because again, I'm spending my time doing this. You guys are spending your time keeping track of everybody online. Like you bring up the college football lifer guy. I had no idea who that was until the last several weeks. Georgia fans are extremely loyal and always up to talk about their team. So if you can get into that market, your channel will get a healthy boost. So Ryan, absolutely right. So my Georgia videos, they do okay. They don't do great. A couple hundred views, but I'm not going to give up. There are some big time teams that nobody watches those particular videos, but I'm not going to stop covering them because I'm covering college football. I'm determined to cover college football regardless. And then secondly, I'm not going to give up because I want those people to eventually find me. Let the cater have fun. Let the haters have fun. Just enthusiastic. All right. So we've probably done enough damage here tonight. You guys, again, contributors you want to see, content you want to see, any other ideas you have, please let me know here at Mark Rogers TV. And you want to contact me directly if you'd like. It's MarkRogersTV at Gmail. But otherwise, I'm going to see your comments in the comments section. And I will go after LSU Dad, Sports Gaming, one, whoever they are, Jeff Centel, SEC Country, Jerry DiNardo. I just wrote that down for myself because I think he's a great guest. And Keely, fill in. Keely, I will try. I will try. She's a nice girl. She was on once. We had a great time and discussed USC football, and she has said that she had a great time, would come on whenever I needed, but I have not been able to get in touch with her since. Davis Mills has yet to take the field. However, both he and KJ Costello were reportedly hurt during spring training. Just wanted to know if you had any inside info. I don't. I might have had, again, my Stanford guy is no longer covering Stanford football, but he would have been all over that. Don't have anything on that. I apologize. Bobby Davis Mills, yes, in a battle with KJ Costello. All right, guys, appreciate it. We're talking Big 12 football on a Sunday. We've got a segment set up for a live stream with the LGG. It's the Land Grant Gauntlet. We've had Chris Ross on before to talk the Big 12. I've got him focused on Texas Christian, TCU, and Oklahoma. When I start calling TCU Texas Christian, that means it's late. All right, guys, we appreciate it. Dennis, you take care. Go Canes. And I will see most of you tomorrow. And the college football videos will be coming on through the holiday weekend. So stay tuned and let me know what you want to see. We'll catch you guys next time.